Welcome to Diaspora Live Show. My name is Pasil Telewa. This show brings you the challenges and opportunities facing Kenyans living in the diaspora. Today, we are hosting the Global Chair of Kenya Diaspora Alliance, Dr. Shem Ochuodho. He's right here with us. Welcome to the show, Dr.
Thank you, Pas.
So when you check out your name on Google,
Right.
Shem Ochuodho, what pops up is that you represented Rangwe constituency between 1997 to 2002. In your own words, Dr. Tell us who you are.
I am a telecommunication engineer. We call ourselves informaticians. So information technology is the space that I play in. I was privileged to be one of the people that brought internet to Africa 25 years ago.
Amazing.
So basically I'm an IT professional, but I've also been engaged on matters of diaspora for the nearly past 30 years. Initially first as a graduate student in the UK, in the US, postdoctoral in Australia, and so on and so forth. Part of what I've done since I left Parliament, I've been working for a number of African governments, Rwanda, South Sudan, Ethiopia, advising on matters of policy and legislation on information technology.
So you've spoken so much about the Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Could you give us an overview what it does?
A number of us believe that Africa's transformation and the gold mine, I should say, for Africa and for Kenya in particular, are going to be two things. One is technovation, being technology and innovation. The second one is the diasporas. The Africa's diaspora pump into the continent a whopping $80 billion, which is almost double the resources that we get from what we call development assistance, overseas development assistance, or aid. And in a number of cases, it's almost twice as much as foreign direct investment. And most of that goes into the big economies, so to speak. 30 billion goes into Egypt, 25 billion into Nigeria, 9 billion into Morocco. Between 3 to 5 billion go into Ghana, Kenya, and Ethiopia per year. So it's quite significant. For Kenya, it's estimated there are between 3 to 4 million Kenyans outside the country ordinarily. And they last year, 2020, pumped into the country $3.3 billion, or 330 billion Kenya shillings, which is more than the money Kenya earns from agricultural produce, basically tea, coffee, and horticulture put together. Perhaps almost 3 times also the money we get from tourism. I'd want us to see us make more money from tourism and agricultural products, but we shouldn't also forget that we are exporting labor, particularly skilled and semi-skilled labor.
Now that you talked about over 3 billion, could there be any correlation between the time when COVID hit the country and the remittances?
Yes, there is. I must mention, Pasil, every December we have, since 2014, we have an annual Diaspora Homecoming Convention. When we had it in 2017, diaspora were taking to the country about $1 billion per year. And the various stakeholders that we have in the diaspora space, in government, both at the national level and county levels, and private sector, and diaspora formations like ours and other organizations, we said, look, what can we do together to double this amount within 5 years? The goal was by 2019 to have raised the $1 billion to $2 billion. To our sweet surprise, actually, we had surpassed that target. So it was actually $2.8 billion by 2019. We have now set a new goal. We want to double it to $5 to $6 billion a year by the year 2030. We know Kenya has got Vision 2030, but AU has got also the Vision Agenda 2063, and the UN have also the SDG Sustainable Development Goals, which have set targets to be achieved by the year 2030. So our goal as Kenya Diaspora Alliance, KDA, is working together with partners. What can we do to raise this figure from the current $3 billion to $6 billion per year, but also enhance the quality. Currently, only 25% goes into investment. 75% goes into family consumption, which is important, but it would be best if it went into savings and investments. So we are keen to, within that duration, by 2030, to increase from 25 to 30%, so that there's more better quality.
Yeah.
We'd want to see diaspora, some of them returning or retiring home to a livelihood. They come back, they have a return on investment, and they start their businesses, which they would have been investing in. So that's our goal. We want to see the remittances better utilized.
Daktari, do you think the Kenya Diaspora Alliance has adequately represented all the Kenyans living in diaspora, from the smallest of countries to the biggest of them all?
We are always quick to indicate that we do not purport to represent all Kenya diasporas. Indeed, Kenya Diaspora Alliance is a federation of now 46 registered diaspora organizations, one from France and another from the US, just joined the past 2 weeks. The combined nominal membership of the 46 organizations is about 250,000, about 250,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just about 10% of the 3 million or 4 million Kenyans abroad.
Yeah.
So we cannot purport, or we don't purport to represent all. However, we try as much as we can. We are a non-profit organization and non-governmental, but work very closely with government, the concerned arms of government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Labor, and other ministries as well, but also with county governments. About 10 of the counties, we work very closely at highest level with governors and so on. That notwithstanding,
Yeah.
A major area of concern to diasporas has been the issue of dual citizenship.
True.
Indeed, we've worked very hard. We did lobby. This is something that I worked on from the time I was in Parliament. In the year 2001, Honorable Mohamed Shidie, now our ambassador in Botswana, and I co-sponsored a motion for dual citizenship. It was shot down by Parliament, but it triggered a conversation.
Yeah.
We were glad about 10 years later, by 2010, at least by that constitutional dispensation moment, we're able to get dual citizenship in the Constitution. That's one major achievement we have had for the Kenyans abroad. And actually not just Kenyans abroad, but even others who are married to Kenyans, or those who have had opportunity to live in Kenya, foreigners, but long enough to want to acquire Kenyan citizenship so that they can have 2 or multiple citizenships. Apart from that, diaspora are very passionate about being able to elect their leaders, taking part in the electoral process.
Yeah.
Again, in this regard, we have lobbied to the extent possible the leadership. I remember in 2010 how we lobbied the then President Kibaki,
Yeah.
the then Prime Minister, the then Vice President, Speaker of Parliament, the various chairpersons or leaders of political parties and members of Parliament for diaspora to be able to vote. The former chairman of what was then ECK, Electoral Commission of Kenya,
Yeah.
The late Samuel Kivuitu, did tell us, if you guys want to vote, sue me. Initially, we thought he was joking, but we later came to understand. He was saying he didn't have instruments to allow diaspora or facilitate diaspora to vote. So as he had advised, we had to go to court. Initially, we lost in the High Court, but we were not convinced. We went to the appeal court. This was around 2011, 2012. In the appeal court, we won. IEBC wasn't very happy with our win. They went to the Supreme Court and we won again. The unfortunate thing is that the decision and directives of the Supreme Court to date haven't quite been implemented. And we're still in conversations with IEBC. Recently, we hosted the chair of IEBC, Mr. Chebukati, represented by one of the commissioners, Professor Gulia.
Amazing.
And the conversation was, how do we get more diasporas to be registered to vote? There's still a bit of unclarity.
Yeah.
When the chairman was in the US also recently, he did indicate that 5 more countries were to be added to vote. We do know that in 2012, 2013, which is the first time for diaspora to vote, only those in East Africa, minus South Sudan,
Yeah.
were able to register and vote. Personally, though living in Juba, South Sudan, I traveled to Nairobi to register to vote. I found that day was just when the last day to register, so I wasn't able to register. The next day I had to travel to Kampala because diaspora registration started late and was still ongoing. So for me to be able to register to vote, I had to go to Kampala to register. The unfortunate thing while in Kampala, nearly 98 or 99% of the people who were coming, there were Kenyans trooping in to register, but they were being turned away because IB came up with a very strange queer requirement, which is not in the constitution.
Which was?
Which was that you needed to have a regular passport to register as a voter. We all know that while Kenyans who go to far-flung places, to the US, to Australia and other places, have regular passports. Those who go to East Africa usually only need a national ID.
True.
And sometimes what we call a temporary passport, which is not an ordinary, a normal passport.
True,
and they wouldn't register to vote. So IBC's reasoning was that how would they be sure that it's not Kenyans who cross the border to Uganda to register?
Once again, or something like that.
But if that was the issue, there are other ways to deal with that. Usually people have got resident documents to show, for example, that you live or work in Uganda or whichever country it is.
True.
So they didn't need, because the constitution says you can register as a voter either with a national passport valid or with a national ID. So to change a regulation that's contrary to that. So we saw that happen. But and a few, barely 3,000 diasporas registered to vote, understandably so. Partly because the decision to register diaspora came late, but then again there was this restriction requiring them to have passports, which they didn't have. Then in 2017, IEBC added South Africa. The reasoning was that now they've added Kenyans in Southern Africa, not just in South Africa. But there was still a problem, Pasil, because there are countries like Lesotho or Swaziland, now Eswatini, which are surrounded by South Africa. But to go into South Africa, you need a visa, usually I think $70 or something like that. So it's costly. It's like you're going to another country. You're going to another country.
I get it.
So it wasn't very easy. But even Kenyans in South Africa itself, it wasn't quite ideal because voting was done in Pretoria, these days called Shwane, the local name, where the seat of power is. But the majority of Kenyans are in either Johannesburg, Joburg, or in Cape Town or Durban. Our recommendation to IBC was to do a mobile registration, voter registration, in those places where there were majority of Kenyans. So again, the result was as expected, not very encouraging. But nonetheless, recently when the chairperson was in the US, he did indicate 5 more countries would be added. USA, Canada, UK, UAE, United Arab Emirates, and South Sudan. However, when we hosted the commissioner recently,
which commissioner now?
Commissioner Professor Gulie.
Oh, I see.
Represented by actually Director Masudi, Operations. He said that was a proposal. So there's still uncertainty and there's a very short time
whether
left.
It will be actualized.
That's right. The registration was meant to start on the 6th to 20th December. Our recommendation was that there needs to be a build-up and maintain the momentum and conversation with the diaspora, particularly on social media, to let them know for those countries where there's going to be registration, be prepared to go to the embassy and register. Talking of the US, you know, US is like a continent with 50 states. Somebody coming, say, from Seattle, Washington State, it's like you coming from Kenya to South Africa to be registered to vote. But we are alive to the fact that the Constitution says there would be progressive registration. And we were happy if they say, okay, those Kenyans in the US who want to register to vote, come either to the Washington, D.C. embassy or to LA, Los Angeles, or New York, because we have missions there. They would come to register. And those in the UK can register in London. It's a good start. It's not adequate, but a good start. But now that there's still non-clarity, that concerns us. And we are keen to engage IBC and other stakeholders to ensure that diaspora are adequately prepared before the registration is done. We do know there's apathy. There was apathy when there was the enhanced mass voter registration in Kenya. We don't want the same to happen in the diasporas, because unlike Kenyans at home, the diaspora don't have the privilege for continuous registration.
Yeah, true.
So when we are going to do it, we must make sure that it's well done and coordinated, of course, with the embassies, with the ambassadors, but as well as with the diaspora organizations themselves.
So talking about that, are you optimistic perhaps that this time round the diasporanians will be able to vote?
Yes, those in East Africa have been able to vote before, but not in significant numbers. It would be good if sufficient mobilization and awareness creation is done, but also getting feedback. The Commission shouldn't just assume they know what diaspora require, what needs to be done. It's important that they engage with the diasporians. They are diaspora, they have community leaders, a number of who we work with. So it would be vital that there's sufficient consultation, and IBC needs to make it easy for them to register to vote. The ultimate goal is to vote electronically. There's no reason, and we've offered to IBC solutions, technology solutions, secure mobile. For now, in particular, the area of blockchain makes, we do know that Kenyans don't seem to trust one another. The trust deficit is problematic. We are told this is why elections in Kenya are very expensive. I think they are the most expensive in Africa and probably the second or third most expensive in the world. If we utilize technology, they wouldn't be so expensive. And people, wherever they are, even those in small islands like Fiji, would be able to register to vote, even those in Samoa, even those in Jamaica, because we have Kenyans all across the globe. But for now, we are saying we are contented if we can add those 5 countries, because we know those are where a majority of Kenyans are. It's estimated that of the 3 million Kenyans, that 600,000 are in North America, are in the US, 300,000 in the UK, 200,000 in Canada, 100,000 in the UAE, 80,000 South Africa. At that time, when World Bank came up with these figures, which was about 4 years ago, 80,000 were also in South Sudan. Of course, during a bit of the crisis that has occurred, the numbers have kind of staggered. But still, that's a rough terrain of the distribution of numbers of Kenyans abroad. So if those particular 5 countries are addressed, then we have an opportunity for at least 50 to 60% of the diasporas to be registered to vote.
Now that you spoke about Kenyans and trust, I don't know how you want Kenyans in the diaspora to keep trusting you, because you've been the sole chair of the Kenya Diaspora Alliance since inception, if I'm not wrong. Could you give us, an overview of how the structure works, or perhaps what needs to happen? Some democracy?
I know. Good question you raise, Pasil. Actually, the diaspora journey, personally I've been involved in it for about 30 years.
Great.
Kenya Diaspora Alliance is only 10 years old. So when we started, because before internet it was extremely difficult to connect. I remember as a graduate student in the UK at the University of York, the only time we would get news was around December 12th, Jamhuri Day. We would travel from York to the High Commission, and then you would find an old newspaper, maybe 2 months old, and so on. That's when you would get to know what's happening. Around internet time, about 6 of us, Kenyans, who happen to have been in the IT world, 3 in the US at MIT, 1 in Canada, 1 in Finland, and I in the UK. We started communicating amongst ourselves in what we are calling Kenyan Association for the Advancement of Computer Technology, CACT. Now, CACT eventually gave way to what we call KenyaNet. In that regard, one of us would get news and then you share by calling home, because it was very, very expensive also to call home, then circulate it. When I got back home around 92, we started a facility of summarizing news. And of course, we worked hard then with others to get internet into Kenya, by extension into Africa. So we were able to summarize news and post out into what was called Kenya News. So Kenya News, together with Kenyanet then became an organization with its own leadership. It converted into Kenya Community Abroad.
Yeah.
Kenya Diaspora Alliance, by that time I wasn't the leader. Kenya Community Abroad had its own leadership and still has its own leadership.
Yeah.
So it's in around 2007 when 6 of our large diaspora organizations came together. Associations said, look, can we form an alliance where we'd work together in a group? So Kenya Diaspora Alliance was then formed by these 6 organizations. Their leaders constitute what we call co-conveners, and the co-conveners elect their chair.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to be elected the chairperson, and who knows, in future we're preparing other diaspora leaders, and the numbers have since grown. So now we have, from 6, we have 46 diaspora organizations. So, but usually it's the co-conveners who elect their chairperson. And of course, each of the organizations, some of them Kenya Community Abroad, or Kenyans for Change in Dallas, Texas, or Kenyans in Nigeria organization, they have their leaderships. So yes, leadership is a result of what they prefer to do. And I have been happy to serve the diasporas, but I'm also transitioning. Now we have Africa Diaspora Alliance, and I'm co-president. The other 2 presidents, one is in the USA, a retired serial investor, Dr. Malcolm Beach. The other one is Jamaican. So we are moving forward, but we still feel much more needs to be done to rally the diasporas for purposes of accelerating economic growth and development.
I'm informed the Kenya Diaspora Conference is coming up soon.
Right.
Could you please give us an overview of what you're expecting?
Yes, normally they go to, there are 2 annual events that we've, over the past 6-7 years, been very religious about. One of them is usually the Rugby Sevens.
Oh yeah.
In Las Vegas. We have been there every year. Normally it brings, it's the highest assembly of Kenyans in the US. You normally get between 10 to 15,000 Kenyans attend.
Wow.
But also, because that was before COVID, we would have as many as 90,000 people in total. So it's a huge assembly.
Massive.
So we've been participating in that, but that's mainly for Kenyans in one country. Globally, the annual Kenya Diaspora Convention is the go-to. So we have this every December. It's coming up 8th to 10th December. It's what we call, it's a double hybrid. Double hybrid in the sense that, one, it's both a convention but also an exhibition.
I see.
It's both in person but also virtual, to the extent that organizations exhibit even virtually. If Makueni County or Kisumu County, and we work with them very closely. So that's why I'm using them as examples. They could decide to exhibit from home, but people would be able to ask questions, get e-leaflets, just like people would do when you go to a physical booth.
Great.
So we are stretching technology to the greatest, and the theme this year is leveraging diaspora remittances to accelerate economic transformation of Kenya.
Amazing. Do you have any possible partnerships besides the counties you just mentioned?
Yes, we work very closely with financial institutions, with real estate companies, with technology companies, with academic institutions, and we have also institutions coming from outside. So yes, we're looking forward to know some experience as usual. Our best event, I must say, was December 2019, just before COVID. We had about 800 people attend physically or sign up during the 3 days of the event. They were from 44 different countries. And we had over 40 companies exhibiting or partnering one way or the other. Of course, during COVID 2020, we had to reduce the numbers because of the space. A room that normally takes 300 to 500 people, we have now to restrict to 150 because of the COVID situation. But I must say that has also pushed us to go virtual and online. And in the course of the year, we have run 4 webinars. I would say the second last webinar, we actually had about 700,000 viewers after a month from 127 different countries. And the last one we had about a month ago, we had 1.2 million Kenyan viewers from about 50 different countries.
That's
so
massive.
Virtually,
Yeah.
we are trying to reach out to more diasporas. I'm sure a number of other people who access are not necessarily Kenyans, but this is something we are keen to work together with yourselves, the media houses,
Yeah.
but also with government and private corporates to reach out to all the Kenyan diasporas and African diasporas as well.
Dr. Shem, it's been 20 years since
Yes.
you are active in Parliament.
Right.
Yeah. Do you miss Parliament?
Yes and no. I must say that what most people don't know,
Yeah.
and I must say the Parliament of today and our Parliament were different. I think our salary, was it 30,000 shillings or something like that? That
Yeah.
was basic salary. We didn't have constituency offices. We didn't have assistance, research support. The perks that parliamentarians enjoy today, we didn't have.
Yeah.
So we were in Parliament to serve the people. And people before us were even much more patriotic than ourselves. So to that extent, I must say, the only time I had difficulty paying fees,
Yeah.
to be honest, was when I was in Parliament. So I have grown-ups. There's less stress being out of Parliament. Some of us went to Parliament with a course. My major course was I wanted to push technology. As then chairman of the Computer Society of Kenya, we were pushing computers, but government was not very supportive. If you were old enough, you're probably too young a person. The older ones know a time when the then President Moi,
Yeah.
at a public rally in Nakuru, said, Kenya, we don't need computers. Computers are going to take away jobs from our people. Now you can imagine, as chair of the Computer Society, I was to convince the country to go the opposite direction. So I realized once we had a workshop with members of Parliament to discuss IT and computers, some of them, like the late Dr. Kiombaka, told me, Shem, what you're saying sounds good, but it's Greek to us.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're one of us, we may be able to listen to you. So that's why I went to Parliament, and with some success. One of the things was the Communications Act of 1998. Twice Parliament had rejected the liberalization
Yeah.
and privatization of the telecom sector. Remember, we used to have one telecom company, Kenya Post and Telecom.
Yeah.
So one of my major achievements in Parliament was the successful push of the Telecom Act,
Yeah.
the communications law, that opened up the sector and allowed other players, Safaricom and others, to come in. We're now enjoying, we have mobile telephony, internet, and so on and so forth.
That aside, though, is there any chance that you might be going back to competitive elective position?
I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say yes. There's a lot of pressure. Usually, the citizens, the constituents, the voters do push. But you know, as a veteran, you weigh the options. It's not nice. I think politics in Kenya has been too commercialized, very unfortunately, which is something that we need to think about as a country.
Yeah.
IBC came up with this regulation to cap the campaign finance, which was very good. But members of Parliament, in my view, selfishly shot it down. I think we need to relook at it. So, of course, I don't have those many tens of billions or millions that people spend into politics. So, yes, there's pressure. I'm watching.
Yeah.
I would have loved just to stay and do my IT and telecom work if the country was running right. And for some of us who worked hard to get KANU out of power, we thought we were going to give Kenyans a better Kenya for all. That hasn't happened. So at this point, I can't say yes, I can't say no, but following very closely. But I must say I'm very disillusioned with the leadership I see. Lots of Kenyans are disillusioned as well, both at home and abroad. But this is our country. And we owe it to future generations to work hard, to create wealth, to create employment for young people. One of the things, two products are likely to be unveiled during the convention next month. One is in collaboration with the National Social Security Fund,
Yeah.
a social security arrangement for diasporas so that they can be cushioned while away and when back home, but also to support their relatives and associates. The other is a Kenya Diaspora Investment Vehicle, we are working together with a Norwegian organization called Pangea Trust, supported with the Swedish SIDA, Swedish International Development Agency, to establish a fund again in which diaspora can put resources to support startups, Mama Mboga fund, so to speak, so that we can promote entrepreneurship but also create jobs for youth. When this happens, I would want to encourage diasporians to come on board in a full way. But also I must mention that we are targeting very keen on cottage industry or industrialization. So we, for example, working already with 3 such projects, a most prominent one in Kisii that has employed about 100 young people and leveraging banana and has got 10 different products.
Wow.
One of the products is currently being showcased in Dubai during the Dubai Expo.
Amazing.
The other is a project we are pursuing in Lari, Kiambu, tagged on mushroom. But we are also working with Kisumu County and also Embu County. There is an institution, technical institution we are working with to see how it can better promote local talent and skills. But also for Kisumu, the Afri-Cities that's coming up in May next year. So we want to encourage diaspora that apart from the remittances that come, let them be also involved in economic and cultural renaissance of Kenya and Africa by extension.
Great.
We do know that African Americans have a spending capacity of $1.2 trillion. That's bigger than the GDP of any African country. Many of them have said, look, we want to bring some of this money into Africa through Kenya, through Konza City. So Konza is very key, and it's one of the confirmed partners during the convention. And we're looking forward to working together with it as a techno city as a mechanism to bring in capital and also knowledge for Kenya's economic transformation.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Shem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember to catch the show every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Kenyan time on KTN News. My name is Pasil Telewa. Bye-bye.